Thank you for joining us yet again on our news desk. Here are the headlines. Transparency International Zambia TIZ has welcomed the conviction and sentencing of former Minister of Health, Chief Human Resource Officer Henry Kapoko, and 4 others for corruption and theft involving 6 million kwacha. Vice President Inwanga has urged newly elected Mayor Mao Sampa to help improve revenue collection for the council and resolve statutory financial obligations for the council by working together with management and the councillors. Here now is the news in detail. Transparency International Zambia TIZ has welcomed the conviction and sentencing of former Minister of Health, Chief Human Resource Officer Henry Kapoko, and 4 others for corruption and theft involving 6 million kwacha. TIZ Chapter President Ruben Lifuka has also commended the Judiciary and the Anti-Corruption Commission ACC for the work they have put in to conclude this case. Mr. Lifuka says the conviction and sentencing of Mr. Kapoko and 4 others not only send strong deterrent signals to would-be offenders, but also makes people have confidence in the laws and their enforcement. He has told Q News in a statement that his organization does not take pleasure in seeing people going to jail, but on matters of financial resource, mismanagement, transparency and accountability, society needs to have civil servants who plant good seeds of integrity, accountability and transparency, and also lead by example. Mr. Lifuka feels that it is only right that if civil servants who handle basic public resources like Mr. Kapoko fall short of values relating to integrity, accountability and transparency, then they deserve to go to prison to reform. He has expressed hope that the conviction and sentencing of Mr. Kapoko and the other 4 will serve as a good lesson to public service workers on the need to respect taxpayers' money. Public authority and office. The TIZ Chapter President has since called on the ACC and other law enforcement agencies to further stretch their hands and ensure that all currently serving civil servants and those retired are made to account for their actions urgently. Mr. Lifuka says the Anti-Corruption Commission to move in and seize all of Mr. Kapoko's assets cited in the judgment, including others convicted, and ensure that forfeiture of these assets to the state is done in a transparent manner. Vice President Inwanga has urged newly elected Mayor Mao Sampa to help improve revenue collection for the council and resolve statutory financial obligations for the council by working together with the management and the councillors. Officiating at the inauguration ceremony of Mr. Sampa, Ms. Winner is of the firm belief that Lusaka City Council has the potential to raise revenue through its operations, but that has to go with prudent management of financial resources. The Vice President has urged the new mayor to step up efforts in the construction of the 7 mini-civic centers in each of the 7 constituencies in Lusaka. She has advised Mr. Sampa to let his work speak for government, reminding him to effectively discharge his duties to the citizens across the city regardless of political affiliation. Nakaunga has more in this report.
I,
Maus Walia Sampa,
having been duly elected into office of mayor,
of mayor of
the city of Lusaka, do hereby solemnly swear and declare that I take this office upon myself, that I will protect, preserve and defend the Constitution of Zambia as per law provided.
He took oath, and this marked the official swearing-in of Mao Sampa as mayor of Lusaka City by Magistrate David Simsamba. Mr. Sampa, who contested on the Patriotic Front Party position, emerged winner in the 26th July Lusaka mayoral by-elections, which came about following the death of Mr. Wilson Kalumba. The installation ceremony, which was held at the Civic Center Nakatindi grounds, was attended by scores of Lusaka residents, councillors, senior government officials, Patriotic Front Party members and party supporters, among others. The ceremony was officiated by Vice President Mrs. Inwanga, who first signed in the congratulatory book in the mayor's office, then later proceeded to the grounds, where she gave several heads up to the new mayor of Lusaka regards the people and government expectations in his delivery of service.
I am glad to note that, like your predecessor, you are coming from a financial background. which should be a blessing to the city of Lusaka. I'm sure you will help improve revenue collection for the council and resolve all statutory financial obligations for your council by working together with management and the councillors. And by so doing, this will enable you attain a physical stability and provide meaningful services to the residents of Lusaka. As government, we will continue to offer support to the councils in general and to provide the necessary leadership, as well as to play an oversight role to ensure that councils sustain their operations.
And speaking after being installed, His Worship Mr. Miles Sampa pledged to transform the city into an economic hub. The mayor, who was flanked by his mother and daughter, also announced various activities he will embark on to make the city of Lusaka better.
Among some of the areas to build up are the need to transform Lusaka into an economic hub, but to achieve this, the mayor will need the concerted effort of all stakeholders who include the government, private sector, the general citizenry, regardless of their political affiliation. I wish to propose to run the council like a business enterprise in the promotion of public partnership. I'll repeat that for the sake of Honorable Given Lurinda. I wish to propose to run the council like a business enterprise in the promotion of public-private partnerships while providing social services.
He also announced how he will make his office easily accessible to the general public.
In the spirit of making the council accessible to every resident, I've wondered why the road there is always closed and everyone to come to the council uses the back door. So there are some traditions that we should question why, and if there's no compelling reason why they should be adhered to, we need to change them immediately. So from onset, the mayor and everyone that wants to come to the council, please use this gate in front to always remain open. I've also wondered why that next road has been closed. Since I was young, it's been closed along Independence Avenue. The turn into the council is been barricaded. Going forward, we will immediately open it so that everybody uses the front entrance.
The people of Lusaka now wait anxiously to see the developments that the new mayor, Mr. Miles Sampa, will bring to the city of Lusaka. Nakaonga reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
Police in Mansa rounded up a group of 55 suspected students who were found at Success Tuition Center in Zambia compound within Mansa district revising a 2018 GCE Grade 12 Mathematics Paper 2. This happened on the 31st of July 2018 after receiving information from a concerned member of the public. After research, it was discovered that most of them had Mathematics Paper 2 questions on their cell phones and also had cover exercise books which contained the same questions, and was confirmed on the 1st of August 2018 that the mathematics questions which the students were revising were the ones in the actual examination paper. According to a statement made available to Q News by Zambia Police Public Relations Officer Esther Mwata Katongo, 48 students comprising 36 females and 12 males were then charged with the offense of unauthorized possession of examination material or information contrary to Section 19, Section 1, Chapter 137 of the Laws of Zambia, and will appear before court soon. Investigations to establish the source have continued. In a related development, police in Mongo Western Province have arrested 7 pupils, among them 6 female and 1 male, who were found in possession of Mathematics Examination Paper 2 of 2018. The suspects have been charged with unauthorized possession of examination material or information contrary to Section 19, Section 1, Chapter 137 of the Laws of Zambia, and will appear before court soon. The ruling Patriotic Front and the opposition United Party for National Development UPND have pledged to abide by the Peace Pact that was recently signed to end political violence by the two parties. Patriotic Front Secretary General Davis Mwila has reaffirmed the Patriotic Front's commitment to maintain peace and development in the country. Speaking when he paid a courtesy call on the UPND Secretary General Stephen Katuka, Mr. Mwila says his party will continue to promote national unity. The meeting is aimed at strengthening unity, commencing dialogue and maintaining peace among other key issues. And Mr. Mwila has stressed on the PF's continued adherence to the culture of dialogue with all political and social circles, aiming at strengthening favorable conditions for socio-economic development.
Because if surely we want peace, it is important for us, yourselves and ourselves, to ensure that we continue sensitizing our youth to refrain from the acts of violence. That way, we expect Zambia to be peaceful. The last one, SG, is that through ZCID, we've been holding meetings for us to have the dialogue. And I want to assure you on behalf of PF, because I'm the spokesperson of PF, and what I say is the mandate of the party, is that the PF has always been ready to dialogue without any conditionality. And where we are, SG, we had differences initially when we started, but I've seen on behalf of the party, on our side, that our differences are being narrowed, in that all of us have agreed that this dialogue must be chaired by the chair, to be facilitated by ZCID. That has been the decision that we made in Siavonga as Secretary Generals. And I hope that we have to make progress, because there are too many issues that we'll have to discuss. In Siavonga, we have discussed the issue of electoral process, electoral reforms, the issue of amending the Constitution, the Public Order Act, other governance issues.
And United Party for National Development, UPND Secretary General Stephen Katuka, says there is need for the two political parties to be sincere with the peace pact. He says failure to which the people in future will judge them if they fail to implement the peace accord that is aimed at ending political violence in the country. Mr. Katuka has, however, observed the need for two political parties to sensitize their members of public across the country on the need to not to indulge in any act that stands the potential of creating any form of fighting or conflict between the two political parties.
And the respect for each other has been missing. Even as we talk to one another, when we go to media houses, talk about each other, there must be that element of respect. We are talking about a colleague who is a citizen of a country, who is also entitled to the same privilege that we are all entitled to. So that respect must always be there. Even when we have elections, we should know that in the past, it was common that you go to election, after an election you shake hands and wish your friend good luck and say, okay, hard luck for you, there's always the next time. But now, it is different. At election day, before elections is total war. You must go there ready to defend yourself, which is strange in the Zambian context. As a country, I remember President Kaunda saying that Zambia is not a warmongering nation. Even the Zambian people are not warmongering. I do not see why we should start moving around with guns. Even if you have a gun, it's not necessary to move around with. We wonder where this gun culture has come from. So whatever we are doing is working towards building peace as a country, as a people, and it's a welcome move. We should all be sincere to this process. Having been given an opportunity of leadership, all of us, if I look around, you have all the members of parliament elected by the Zambian people. That's the biggest power that you have, where you are given power by the people. They give you a mandate because they realize that you are a leader. You have the qualities of a leader.
Meanwhile, the two Secretary Generals have committed themselves to peaceful campaigns for the September 6th, 2018 Kasanengwa by-elections and local government by-elections in Kamalamba, Liyovu, Nkenyauna wards in Northwestern Province and Mabili and Shikombwe wards in Western Province. Council of Churches in Zambia CCZ General Secretary Father Emmanuel Chikoya has urged parents going through hardships to share their challenges with faith-based organizations such as the church and the relevant NGOs instead of resorting to selling their children. Commenting on the arresting of a 29-year-old man of Onakonde for trafficking in persons after he attempted to sell his 3-year-old son for 100,000 kwacha and that the boy be killed for rituals, Father Chikoya says parents and citizens at large must consider sharing their problems with institutions that can help instead of selling their own children, whom God has entrusted them with. Father Chikoya has reminded parents that they are just stewards of their children, hence have no right to do anything they wish to do to them. He says money acquired from selling on children would not take anyone anywhere, but would instead worsen whatever challenges a parent is going through. He says human beings are created in the image of God, hence the human dignities which must not be compromised in any way. He says no human being is worth selling for any price. Father Chikoya has since commended the Zambia police for their quick response in arresting the offender, thereby saving the life of the innocent boy. Meanwhile, Father Chikoya has commended the media for digging and publishing news on human trafficking and ritual killings which have rocked the country of late. He has since urged law enforcement agencies to take proactive and keen interest in attempted murder cases as opposed to waiting for victims to report to their officers, stating that it is the duty of law enforcement agencies such as the Zambia police to protect citizens by maintaining law and order. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by Council of Churches in Zambia Communications Officer Michael Mazakaza. The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflections, JCTR, has expressed concern on some leaders who are in a habit of going out to interact with the people and appreciate the situation on the ground during election period. JCTR Programs Officer for Social and Economic Development, Innocent Ndashe, says this practice must not be limited to election campaign period, but must become a default style of leadership in the country. Mr. Ndashe has observed that this type of leadership will serve to facilitate the implementation of decentralization in Zambia. He has therefore urged government to urgently implement, among measures, provisions of the decentralization policy such as non-politicized ward development committees to enhance interaction between leaders and ordinary citizens. He says the center has also demanded that leaders, regardless the levels, need to make it a habit to be frequently visiting electorates and ordinary citizens to appreciate the situation on the ground to make informed decisions. And Mr. Ndashe has further urged electorates in places where elections are taking place to elect candidates who are truly committed to serving their needs or the needs of the people at local level. Meanwhile, Mr. Ndashe is appealing to governments to urgently spell out clearly how marketing of the crop in the agriculture sector is to be managed. He has, however, urged governments to take the lead in encouraging diversified agriculture, for instance, providing readily available market for other crops beyond maize that could be grown in various provinces.
That, in the long term, might have a negative impact on the country. One, we might see ourselves where we are struggling in terms of having abundant maize to grind into our meal. Once we have low production, that might actually push the prices of meal to be high, as those now that would be growing maize in short supply will take advantage and hiking the prices. And then we might see a situation where those of our colleagues in the region who see the opportunity in growing maize might even be exporting their maize to this country, meaning we will be importing, and that will be very, very high. So I think it's a wake-up call to government that we need to take the agriculture sector seriously. I think this will have a serious negative impact in terms of prices, but also in terms of the lives of the people, in the sense that already most people are economically inactive. Their levels of incomes are very low. Now a situation where you have the staple food becoming so expensive, and people are having challenges to manage those, meaning we'll be pushing a lot of people into poverty.
Opposition UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema has been advised to be wary he will lose his rightful position of being a leader if he continues advocating for disunity in Zambia. Development activist Canisius Banda says he personally finds it shocking and offensive that Mr. Hichilema has opted to trash the peace accord signed between the UPND and the ruling PF. Dr. Banda is wondering how Mr. Hichilema can allegedly decide to trash peace agreements when what the entire nation should be in pursuit of is harmony. In an interview with QTV News, Dr. Banda has counseled Mr. Hichilema to realize that if he is going to lead the people, he must be in the forefront in ensuring that peace and unity prevails. Dr. Banda, who is also a former UPND Vice President for Politics, says human beings should not fight or kill each other, and therefore Mr. Hichilema must not be an advocate for politics of violence. He says Mr. Hichilema should instead unite the rest of his party members in support of the peace accord between the ruling PF and the UPND.
If he's going to lead human beings, he must be at the forefront of ensuring that peace and unity prevail. Human beings must not fight each other. They must not be killing each other. That's unacceptable. So he mustn't be an advocate of panga for panga. That is wrong. It is actually worse than bad. So we advise him to be united with his members in that political party. There seems to be division. Members of UPND are saying, let us sign for peace. And Mr. Hichilema is saying, no, let's not do it. Let's go panga for panga. Now, that is wrong. And that renders him unfit for the governance of human beings.
Zambia youths in the fight against corruption, ZIAFAC, is welcoming government's intention of government to consider the refinancing of the Euro bond. ZIAFAC Executive Director Maurice Malambo says President Lungu's decision is one of the viable options, among others, because the refinancing of the debt will leverage locally generated revenue, which could have been committed towards debt repayment, be channeled to other social and economic investments such as education, health, agriculture, and more importantly, the completion of stored pieces of infrastructure across the country, in positioning the country for economic stability and growth. Mr. Malambo has since urged stakeholders and the citizenry to support government in this endeavor because the bond finance market is by nature a highly rigid market with little or no room for any kind of flexibility in terms of deferment of payment, interest charged on the principal facility, and a fair payback period. He has therefore urged governments to realize this option with a Turkish investment or any other because the refinancing will not only leverage locally generated revenue, the same be reinvested into different sectors of the country's economy, but also will accrue some benefit in terms of deferred and flexible payback plan, as well as a non-rigid interest rate, contrary to the nature of the bond finance market.
This time around, the international financial market is easing up in favor of the borrowers. So it is a very good strategy of debt management where you refinance a debt which was acquired under a very unfavorable global economic climate and take advantage of a favorable global climate. Also, we want to underscore the fact that the decision is not a product of debt crisis, because there's no debt crisis as far as we're concerned. What is there are simply efforts being made to deal with debt, not that there is debt crisis, as alluded to by the President of the United Party for National Development, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. Because if the decision a government has made to refinance the Eurobond was underlined by the failure to pay, it would have been pretty difficult for the any international investor, in this case those that have declared interest, who happen to be the Turkish investors, it would have been pretty difficult for them to pursue that idea. The fact that they've considered to pursue the debt refinancing, the refinancing of our debt, it goes to underscore the fact that Zambia is economically viable.
The Professional Insurance Corporation Limited says the huge investment by government in the aviation sector requires an overseas travel insurance policy in order to help in mitigating some of the risks associated with air travel. Insurance Managing Director Moses Siame says the firm is committed to adding value into the aviation sector, as evidenced by the introduction of overseas travel insurance product, which is designed to cover a person against possible risks that they may encounter. Overseas travel insurance policy is designed to cover customers against the possible risks they may encounter whilst traveling overseas. Mr. Siame said this during the launch of the Overseas Travel Insurance Cocktail in Lusaka last night. Some of the investment government has made in the aviation sector include the upgrading of Harry Mwanga Airport in Livingstone and the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, which will see its capacity to 4 million. The construction of the new Copperbelt International Airport in Ndola is another investment which will see an increase in the annual passenger capacity to 2 million passengers.
The overseas travel insurance policy is essentially designed to cover you or the traveling public against risks, possible risks you may encounter whilst traveling overseas. Why do you need overseas travel insurance? Number one, travel insurance is needed to complete protection as an overseas traveler from the risks associated with traveling, as indicated earlier. Some tour operators, many of you are present here, and actually insist on this cover when purchasing holiday packages or indeed when traveling overseas. So you need to have your insurance in place before you can be assisted by many of the travel agents because of the requirements in that country or in the destinations that you are going to. The overseas.
And speaking later when he officiated the launch of the overseas travel insurance policy, Mahogany Airline Chief Executive Officer Dr. Jim Belemu underscored the importance of the new insurance when it comes to avoiding expenses.
You may wish to know that at the moment in Zambia, we do not have an emergency evacuation that is stationed here, air evacuation I mean. It has to be relayed from South Africa, which is about 2 hours flight away from here. We in the industry must cooperate and collaborate seriously with organizations from the insurance like this, because to lift an aircraft to come and do an evacuation from here, the ferry flight, most of my colleagues will agree with me, is not less than $12,000. And then to go and pick up a patient, that's another cost. Now, none of us who are here who can dispute that this type of cost under an emergency, or even if it was planned, is way beyond the reach of many of us. But yet, we want to save life. So packages of this nature will assist us as much faster than we thought, because we're already thinking ahead now that the next thing is to start partnering with insurance companies.
The Islamic Supreme Council of Zambia, ISCZ, has criticized the opposition for failing to put the interest of the country first. Council President Suzy Ozimbe has told politicians that being in the opposition is not about opposing projects that benefit Zambians. He has told Q News in an interview that the role of opposition politicians is to air their views democratically on issues they have a difference of opinion on and to support what is right. Mr. Zimba is worried that instead of asking for more investments in Zambia and putting the country first, the opposition leaders have chosen to put their selfish interests first. He says political leaders should be motivated by progress in the country and not by personal fights.
That is what it means also to always oppose, but opposing the majority is actually a grave mistake. I would advise the president of UPND to support any idea that is good for the country. Even if he was in the office, he would have loved to see a situation where people come together, you know. I mean, we all forget about our different way of thinking, but when it comes to the country, we unite as one. And advice to the leaders, especially Hakainde, is that, you know, as a leader, you are imitated by your followers. So at times our stance misleads the followers, you know. At times it can, you know, so if you know that you are followers and you always want to go the wrong way, always want to oppose the right way, I think it's not good for the country. I mean, it's not like he's the best person for this country. Even us, even me, at some point I would want to be president of this country. I mean, it's normal. But I will not take myself as the best person, because only God knows who is better than all of us. And for us to have a stance where you always think that you're better than everyone and your decision should be fine, I think it's a grave mistake and going to extremes, and that is not good for the country.
Losing mayoral candidate Leslie Chikuse has called on Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa to fulfill its electioneering campaign promises to the people of Lusaka. Mr. Chikuse has requested the Lusaka Mayor to honor his 100 days promise. Mr. Sampa promised to establish a 24/7 toll-free call center, decongest traffic on Lusaka roads, introduce free Wi-Fi in bus stops, public places, airports and train stations, introduce town hall meetings, provide title deeds to all house owners in Lusaka, provide conducive market and trading places, and make the local authority financially viable. He has told Q News in an interview that politicians always make promises to decongest traffic on Lusaka roads, but it always turned out to be a political gimmick for winning votes in the area. Mr. Chikuse has, however, pledged to work with Mr. Sampa in ensuring that he brings development in Lusaka.
People must ready, you know, to start working on a lot of developmental issues, working on villages and so on, because jobs will be created and there will be a lot of hope for most of the residents of Lusaka.
Simon and Sons Building Director Chitambala Mwewa has advised Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa to be practical and walk his talk in ensuring that the city is clean, green and healthy. Mr. Chitambala, who is in charge of administration at the Simon and Sons Building, which is along Simon Mwewa Lane in the Central Business District, has urged Mr. Sampa to avoid just offering lip service in making the city clean and healthy. Mr. Mwewa has also noted with concern how the city is currently flooded in filth and waste, a situation he says will require a robust on-the-ground campaign by the mayor to change people's mindset on how they view waste disposal and hygiene. He states that Mr. Sampa must leave out politics in making the city better, but get to the bottom of issues and work with all relevant stakeholders. Mr. Mwewa has further noted that now that the country is in a new dispensation of making the cities clean, green and healthy, the mayor should be practical and ensure that laws are enforced in this regard. He has since reminded the mayor that people have high expectations of him to fulfill his campaign promises and bring change to the city.
We have an administration that is pushing forward this agenda of making Zambia clean, green and healthy. Unlike the previous administrations that simply paid lip service to this mantra, we actually have an administration in place that really truly wants to push this agenda forward. And our expectations for the mayor is to simply fulfill the expectations and the desires of the people of Lusaka. We want a clean Lusaka, And clean doesn't mean lip service. Clean means we have to change the way we view, the way we deal with waste management, the way we deal with personal hygiene. There needs to be a very strong wave of sensitization and enforcement that needs to take place in order for this city to function. The mayor has to go on a massive campaign to re-educate our people in the way we view personal hygiene and garbage disposal. Currently, this city is inundated in filth, and that's just the truth of it. It's inundated, covered in filth, and it's going to take more than lip service to reconfigure ourselves as a city. So the mayor, I wish him the very best, and I want him to succeed, just like every other Lusaka citizen. We want him to succeed. But success is going to come from a practical point of view.
That item concludes our news, but before I take a run, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. Transparency International Zambia TIZ has welcomed the conviction and sentencing of former Ministry of Health Chief Human Resource Officer Henry Kapoko and 4 others for corruption and theft involving 6 million kwacha. Vice President Nongewina has urged newly elected Mayor Mao Sampa to help improve revenue collection for the council and resolve statutory financial obligations for the council by working together with management and the councillors. That will do for the news. Thank you so much for your time. Continue watching QTV. Experience Home.